So this is probably the most difficult part and the one that people get most stressed about, and for good reason. So the personal statement is all to do with giving the University of Sunderland and Ian and Rob, the people who will be looking at this, the idea that you are suitable for doing the QTS assessment only. They feel that you are, so you've already got to this stage, but what you need to do is to convince them and then also have the evidence in place in a structured and clear and cogent manner during the personal statement, which is a maximum of 2,000 words. So try to think about what you can write in here that will give them the information that you are ready to do the assessment only. So what they've asked you to do is to structure it so it is all related directly to the teaching standards in the UK. We will give you the outline of the teaching standards in the UK PDF. And what you need to do is just to have 5 sections for your personal statement and relate what you have done either through professional developments or things that you've actually done in your class, experiences you've had, things that you've done, things that you are going to do, and give them a real sense that you're ready to do this course. So everything that you do, you need to relate directly to the teacher's standards covered. So in the first section, what does a good lesson look like and how do you ensure that you are learning, that your learning environment and lessons are inclusive to all ability levels and learner types. So in this section here, you've got to refer to the types of lessons that you feel that you do best. How are they inclusive? How do they involve everybody within the class? How do you do the class? How do you structure it? How do you make sure that everybody has access to the curriculum, making sure that everybody is on task and able to read, able to ask questions, and able to access all of the teaching materials, and also making sure that teaching and learning is at a very high level. So think about the types of learners, whether they're visual learners, what types of learners are they? How do you make sure that you assess this before going into the class? How do you assess that the actual study and how the assessment is delivered to the students and making sure that they understand what's going on, and how do they know at the end of the class or at the end of a particular task, have they reached a required level to then move on to a different task. If they haven't reached that level, how do you assess that? How do you feed back to them? How do you make sure that the students then have the time, have the space, and have the ability to then get to that level before moving on? Next one, explain your taught curriculum over the course of the year. Indicate the schemes of work you've used, your involvement in longer term planning, particularly departmental planning and team planning, and how do you stay current with your curriculum and subject specific knowledge. So these are the teaching standards covered, teaching standard 3 part 2. So thinking about here, how do you get involved with the teaching and learning curriculum planning within your department? Are you a head of department? If you're not a head of department, how do they get you involved with what's being taught? Do they give you scope? Do they give you the ability to then go away and adapt it for your particular needs? Are you part of a curriculum planning departmental team? If you're not, how do you give feedback? How do you adapt the schemes of work that are provided to you? Is this something that you do on a regular basis, or is this something that you've started doing more recently? And also, how do you keep up to date with the changes in your subject specific knowledge? Has the IB curriculum changed over the last year or in the last couple of years when you've been teaching it? Are there new parts to the IGCSE curriculum? Are there new parts to what you're doing in primary phase? Have you been on any career professional development? Have you done them online? Have you done them in person? What do they look like? How have they helped? When did you do them, and what did you gain from them? So anything that is related to curriculum development, how it's implemented, how the schemes of work and lesson planning is done, you can put it in here. How do you assess pupils, both formative and summative? Collect and organize data and use this to facilitate pupil progress, both short and long term, for all ability levels. So how do you do this? So this is teaching standards 2, 4, and 6. How do they relate to what you're doing on a day-to-day basis? Can you give particular examples? Can you give evidence of what you have done? Is there specific information or ways that you collect data? Is there a shared Google file? Is there something else that you collect data on? Who collects the data? How do you use this data? How are you looking at what we could term as value added? How can you assess where the students were, say, 6 months ago to where they are now? How are they improving? How do you know they're improving? How do you give this feedback to both students and also other people within the school and also parents? How do you facilitate appropriate behavior management strategies and a positive behavior for learning environment in your classroom and in the wider school? So these are teacher standards, teaching standard 7, part 2. Again, this may not necessarily be so critical, especially in international schools, but I do know that you still need to be on top of this. How do you make sure that students know the type of behavior that is appropriate? How do new students get this information? How do current students make sure that the new students coming in are aware of the type of standards that are within your classroom and also within the wider school environments? So what do you do around the school when you're doing maybe duties or doing ECAs or CCAs? Is this behavior management and the strategies uniform across the school? Who decides on them? How do you have input into them? Is what you're doing in the classroom consistent with what is expected across the whole school? If it's not, why not? And go from there. How do you adhere to professional standards and knowledge required from a teaching? And to what extent are you aware of safeguarding within the school settings? So this is teaching standards covered in part 2. Again, this sometimes is a little bit difficult. I know in certain bilingual schools, safeguarding may be more implicit than explicit, but there will be safeguarding documents within your school. You just need to dig those out. See what safeguarding is in your school, how this is related to what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Maybe it could be safeguarding when you're going on school trips, safeguarding when you're doing particular activities, maybe outside of the building or in different parts of the school building, doing different activities. If you are a PE teacher, if you're a science teacher, there might be certain safeguarding or things that need to be adhered to. If you're taking a school trip, again, there are certain safeguarding issues, especially if it's a residential program. Again, all of these things are really important. Make sure you've got an idea of what they are at the school. If you don't know what they are, speak to somebody more senior to you, and they will probably provide you with a safeguarding document that you can refer to. So again, the personal statement is really critical to this whole application. We will review it, we will have a look at it, but the most important thing is structure it in these 5 sections. Make sure you're always referring to the teaching standards document and try to relate what you are talking about to specific things within your teaching and learning experience. Cheers. Bye.